What if a fire tore through your home on Christmas Eve? And when the smoke cleared, 5 of your children were simply gone. No bodies, no remains, just vanished. Would you believe the official story? Or would you spend the rest of your life chasing answers? Welcome to Beyond the Silence, Whispers Across America. I'm Sammy, and tonight's episode is one that gets under my skin every single time. We're stepping back into Christmas Eve, 1945, Fayetteville, West Virginia. A small town, tight-knit, the kind of place where everybody knew the Sodder family. George and Jennie, Italian immigrants, hardworking, respected, and prosperous. Thanks to George's coal business, we're raising 10 kids under one bustling, love-filled roof. So picture the holiday night, Christmas Eve. The tree's lit, the younger kiddos, Betty, Jennie, Louis, Martha, and Maurice, are playing with toys Marion bought with her paycheck from the dime store. It's festive, warm, the kind of moment families look back on and treasure. Honestly, when I think about my own family's holiday traditions, that feeling is exactly what comes to mind. You know? That glass of eggnog that someone inevitably knocks over, someone sneaking one too many cookies. It makes what happened next, it just hits you harder. In a split second, one ordinary Christmas turned into an unending nightmare, a mystery that's haunted generations. Here's how the night unfolds, and there are details here that, well, they drive you mad if you try to make sense of them. The little ones, their chores done, ask Jennie and George if they can stay up. The parents give in. It's Christmas, after all. As long as the older boys, Louis and Maurice, lock up the coop and feed the cows. Marion, the teenager, falls asleep on the couch, and Jennie, the mom, takes baby Sylvia upstairs. George and the oldest boys turn in early. George had been working all day. A little after midnight, the phone rings. Real late, right? Jennie picks up, and there's some strange woman asking for somebody who doesn't live there. Laughter in the background, then a weird laugh from the caller before hanging up. Now, I don't know about you, but a late-night wrong number is never just a funny one-off in stories like these. When Jennie puts the phone down, she notices the lights downstairs are still on. The door's unlocked. Odd for her disciplined children. She turns the lights off, locks up, but doesn't see the younger kids. Maybe she assumes they're up in the attic. About a half hour later, she hears this thud, like something hitting the roof and rolling off. She's tired, doesn't go check, just drifts back to sleep. By around 1 a.m., though, she's up again. This time to the smell of smoke. She wakes George, chaos erupts. Marion's up and gets Sylvia out while George and the older boys, John and George Jr., come stumbling down, hair singed by the flames. They're yelling, trying to get to everyone. But 5 kids, Maurice, Martha, Jennie, Louis, and little Betty, aren't with them. Not in the living room, not on the stairs. Just missing. As the fire moves fast, swallowing the stairway to the attic. Can you imagine tucking your kids in on Christmas Eve, only to wake up and half of them are gone? At this point, we're talking minutes. Fire's blazing, everyone outside, but it's icy cold, panic everywhere. Jennie and George realize right away, 5 kids, gone. They try everything, shouting, breaking windows, but it's like the house just ate them up. That's what makes what follows so unsettling. By sunrise, when the fire department finally gets there, the place is just a charred, smoldering pile of ash and debris. Here's where the mystery starts digging in deep. Despite searching the ruins, there's, get this, no trace of the missing 5. No bodies, no bones, not even personal items, not even the smallest remains you'd expect after a house fire. I mean, I'm not an expert, but I've read enough about fire aftermath to know even in the worst blazes, you tend to find something. Experts at the time would later say a typical fire like this just couldn't fully destroy human bone. Appliances were left, bits of the tin roof, but not a single piece of these kids. This is when the Sodder family's certainty grows. Their children didn't die in that fire. Not unless something completely outside the realm of normal happened. And to be fair, even the cops and fire chiefs seem to shrug it off. Faulty wiring, they say, but 5 kids don't just evaporate, faulty wiring or not. That official story never sat right with George or Jennie. How could it? How about yourself? Would you accept that official explanation or demand the truth? Now, the rescue attempts? If you didn't already have chills, just wait. George tries to get back in. First, he goes for the ladder that's always leaned against the house. Can you guess? Gone. Poof, no ladder anywhere. And it's not like someone misplaced it. Later, they find it tossed down an embankment far from where it should have been. George, he's desperate. He smashes a window, cutting his arm. He tries to start his truck so he can back them up and climb in, because at this point, the only hope is through those upstairs windows. But both trucks, both of them, won't start. These are vehicles he drove the previous day, no problems, suddenly dead. Out in the yard, the barrel for water, it's frozen solid. The neighbors, they try to help, too, running to use their phones. But the line's dead. Marion, the eldest daughter, tries from a neighbor's house, still nothing. Someone jumps in a car to find the fire chief directly, and even then, it takes hours to gather the crew and get them there. 7 hours it took for the fire department to roll up, even though they're only a couple miles away. That's not just bad luck, that's incomprehensible. Then you've got conflicting accounts from some of the siblings about whether they tried to shake the kids awake or just yelled. But either way, those 5 were never seen after. All while the house is reduced to foundation in under an hour. It's tragedy piled on top of confusion, with a heavy dose of, were things stacked against this family from the get-go? Let's rewind a few weeks before the fire, because if you're me, this is where things start to really itch at your brain. October 45, some life insurance salesman tries to push a policy on George. He refuses. So what does the guy say? Your house is going up in smoke and your children are going to be destroyed. All thanks to your dirty remarks about Mussolini. Well, it doesn't get any more pointed than that, does it? Then there's the fuse box incident. A random visitor comes by asking for hauling work, pokes around back, and warns George that his fuse boxes are a fire hazard, even though, mind you, the wiring had just been professionally checked. And the car? The one that gets seen a bunch of times, parked near the house, watching the younger kids walk home? All these incidents, alone, might just be weird, but in the stew of everything else, they make you wonder if this was a setup from the start. George wasn't quiet about his feelings toward Mussolini and fascists. He'd made enemies, especially in the Italian-American community that didn't all share his views. There's talk about organized crime, mafia involvement, retaliation. Suddenly the idea of a kidnapping or vengeance attack, that's not so wild a theory, at least to the Sodders. Was this just bad luck? Or were the Sodders marked for something sinister? Now, the investigation, or what you'd barely call one, gets messy fast. Fire officials quickly chalk it up to an accident, faulty wiring, and wrap things up. Never mind that a professional electrician had inspected the place just weeks before the fire and found it safe. Oh, and the Christmas lights? On, well into the blaze, which, if it had been electrical, makes no sense at all. The power should have gone out right away. Then there's the phone line. Local repairmen say it was physically cut, not burned, and cut in a way that someone would have had to scale a pole and reach out 2 feet to do it. Not exactly random. The missing ladder shows up down the embankment like I mentioned. And here's a real head scratcher. That same insurance salesman who made those threats, he sat on the coroner's jury that decided the fire was accidental. Come on. Even in a small town, gosh. I stutter just trying to wrap my mind around it. Conflict of interest doesn't even begin to cover it. With no remains found, Jennie, she's relentless, starts her own mini forensics experiments. She burns chicken bones, beef joints, pork chops, whatever she can get her hands on. Guess what? After hours and all sorts of heat, bones are always left. People who specialize in this field tell her even at 2,000 degrees Fahrenheit for hours, you still get bones. The Sodder house fire, maybe 45 minutes, are not nearly hot or long enough by any scientific standard to destroy 5 skeletons. Fast forward to 1949, 4 years after the fire. The family brings in a DC pathologist, Oscar Hunter, to excavate the site. They find a couple coins, a burned book, and some shards of vertebrae. But when experts look at the bones, they determine it belonged to, well, basically an older teen or young adult, not any of the missing kids. And crucially, they hadn't even been exposed to fire. Turns out those bones most likely came from cemetery dirt that George had used to fill in the basement after bulldozing. Nothing to do with the kids at all. So what you're left with is nothing but more questions. No official forensics ever link a single trace to a single Sodder child. Ask yourself, how does a fire destroy a house, but leave no trace of 5 small bodies? It's not like this story faded after the ashes cooled. Far from it. The years that followed were a whirlwind of rumors and alleged sightings. There's a woman who swears she saw the kids in the back seat of a car the night of the fire. Another says she served them breakfast at a roadside hotel. The most detailed was from a woman in Charleston running a motel. She claims a group fitting the children's description stayed there, with 2 women and 2 men, all of Italian extraction. She tries to talk to the kids, gets stonewalled. The group leaves at the crack of dawn. Some theories get dark quick. Kidnapping, mafia plots, maybe traffickers trying to get the kids out of state or even out of country. One of the wild notions, someone lured the children out, convinced them their home and family were doomed so they wouldn't resist leaving. The Sodders chased down every hint. Private detectives, front-page stories, trips across the country. They put up that legendary billboard with photos of the children and a hefty reward, kept it up for decades. If hope and stubbornness could find lost loved ones, the Sodders would have cracked this case wide open. If strangers told you they'd seen your children alive, how far would you chase that hope? One of the strangest twists? The so-called heart in a box. 2 years after the fire, Fire Chief Maurice says, "Oh, by the way, I buried a heart I found in the ashes." Leads the family, shows them where, so they dig it up. It's a dynamite box. Inside, turns out to be beef liver, untouched by flames. The fire chief eventually confesses, yeah, he faked it to try to give the Sodders closure, or maybe to cover some kind of blunder. Either way, it's a low point in a string of indignities. Then Sylvia, the youngest, finds a rubber object months after the fire when the snow melts. It's military green, hollow with a cap. Turns out it's likely an incendiary device, a so-called pineapple bomb. And witnesses, the bus driver, neighbors, recall people tossing balls of fire at the house that night. Arson starts looking more and more likely, at least to the folks with the most reason to believe. Nearly 25 years after the fire, Jennie Sodder receives a mysterious photograph in the mail. Postmarked Kentucky, but with no sender's name. It's a young man, dark eyes, the same strong brow as her son Louis. At least that's what the family believes. The back reads, Louis Sodder. I love Brother Frankie. A little boys. A 90132 or 35. Nobody quite knows what any of that means, but the message is enough. The hope is enough. They add the photo to the billboard, hang an enlarged version over their fireplace, to keep the story alive in every possible way. Their pursuit of the truth turned their family into a national icon of cold case perseverance. Billboards, flyers, interviews, and memories. The kind that won't go away quietly. Even after George and Jennie passed, the surviving siblings kept pressing, chasing whispers and faint possibilities. That pattern of families pulling at every thread Refusing to let go is why so many of these stories still demand attention, even generations later. It's hard to wrap this one up. No neat ending, no answers, just questions lingering over the years, echoing from the ashes. But this story refuses to close. Part of the American mythos now. What becomes of the lost, and what lengths would you go to for the truth? Sometimes I get asked, why dig this stuff up? Why keep going? And to that I say, because silence isn't justice. Until next time, keep listening, keep asking, and never let those whispers fade to nothing. What do you believe happened? Share your voice, because sometimes the smallest detail can spark the biggest breakthrough. I'm Sammy, and this is Beyond the Silence, Whispers Across America. Thank you for listening. Stay safe, and I'll see you next time.